I was talking to Colin O'Gara on the podcast a few months ago as well, and he was saying that he's like head of psychiatry in John of God's, but he was a proponent of mindfulness and meditation and different interventions like art therapy. And so it was interesting to hear him, talk about like a sort of a range of interventions that they have, and they aren't just all about pharmaceuticals. And
it's interesting you say that. I think it's important because we're seeing now a huge movement towards what can be referred to as anti-psychiatry, but actually, if you look a little further into it, psychiatry started out with the will and the want to better support people who are living on the streets, who are thrown into leper colonies, who are just being completely failed. And the initial start was something called moral intervention, which was exactly what you're talking about here. It's just how do we remove people, give them some solace and support, listen to them. But then what happened was the institutions opened, and politically they used them as a dumping ground, and they just started filling them up. And psychiatry was like, we cannot, therapeutically support this many people. So on one hand, when I started off my research, I was kind of slightly anti-psychiatry, but actually when I started to see what they had to deal with, and the cultural elements of it and the social forces that came in, and what I believe, and this is only the start of my research, is that I think psychiatrists use words like therapeutic enthusiasm. So they were so enthusiastic to find a solution to better support people with mental health that they often fell into treatments that had no evidence base, that were quite dangerous and in many ways actually barbaric, like the lobotomy. And I do feel, on the other hand, then you had the psychiatry who saw these almost like lab rats that were using people, and it was horrific stuff. But I think we have to be careful, because right now we're at a transition in how mental health intervention is actually going to be designed by systems, and it won't be done through conflict. It has to have conversation. So the idea that psychiatry is looking at other forms of interventions like mindfulness, like other therapeutic interventions, because what's really standing out for me with mental health is I don't believe numbing the pain is going to solve the problem. I think what mindfulness really does help you do is to start to sit with that real discomfort. And discomfort is different. Of course, there's people who've been through great traumas in life and they have to be held and dealt with really, really sensitively. I do believe avoidance is the root of all disorder. And I think my fear around the medical model is how it's being used with children. That's my fear. That's where I feel we have to be far more, I don't know, we have to really have a think about this, because if we're pathologicalizing children at the rate we are, what's next? So I do feel there's a lot of psychiatry and mental health is really looking at better ways, and I think they always have. But it's right now we're at a transition pace, and I believe that early prevention models are probably one of the most important steps we're going to have to take as well.